In the final days of the 2021 college football season, of course, the SEC is focused on winning a national championship, which they've guaranteed. Other portions of the industry across the nation and the other major conferences, of course, concerned about the transfer portal and the upcoming recruiting period and National Signing Day #2 in February and ahead to spring practice. At UCLA, they're just trying to figure out who's going to be their head coach here for 2022. It's still in limbo, and this is an odd situation. So we go to our guy, Tony Siracusa from Last Word on College Football. Tony, how you doing today?
Hey, Mark, how are you?
I am doing just fine. So Chip Kelly and UCLA, he is just a few weeks away from not being formally under contract. So start us out by just kind of outlining where we stand and what the figures look like.
Yeah, where we stand, the answer is, I don't know. Thank you and good night. It's been a pleasure. Look, our sources tell us that somewhere shortly after UCLA blew out USC in week 3 of November, the acknowledgement was at least there that they were going to re-sign Chip Kelly. And here's where we mean re-sign. He is entering year 5 of a 5-year contract. Year 5 is unguaranteed. There is no buyout. That buyout goes away in 2 weeks on the 15th of January. Now, you know that those buyouts, that is what protects the coaches, right? I mean, the higher the buyout, the less likely they are to get fired because the school's got to come up with that kind of money, generally, prorated over 4 years. Chip Kelly is entering that time period, and yet UCLA doesn't have him locked up beyond that. Now, if you're a UCLA fan, if you're this UCLA fan, you don't want him back anyway. You don't like the job he's done. All right, he's 18-25, coming off an 8-4 season. If you're this UCLA fan, you like Chip Kelly. You saw some progress. 8-4 is fine. You didn't beat anybody with a winning record, but 8-4 is 8-4, and you at least theoretically went to a bowl game before you parachuted out of it. So there's a lot of divisiveness within the UCLA fan base. But when you go to the administration, our sources again tell us that what was on the table recently, the most recent offer was 3 years, a 3-year extension, same salary, which is roughly $5.6 million a year, but with a lower buyout. And we don't have a real firm grasp on what that buyout number is, but it is lower. Chip hasn't signed anything. Matter of fact, when we asked Chip about it a couple times over the last few weeks, in between the end of the season and the bowl season, Kelly actually told the media, I don't know. I don't know what the status is. I don't worry about it. That's what I have an agent for. That's an absurd answer. That's ridiculous. It's one thing to say, my agent's taking care of the details. We're negotiating. They're in talks, whatever. For Chip Kelly to just flat out say, I don't know about really what is his lifeblood, his coaching contract is absurd. And it's just not believable. But, typical of Chip, he's like, we operate in a submarine. There are a lot of UCLA fans who want to project their own thoughts on Martin Jarmond, the athletic director. Oh, Martin's got to be happy with the 8-4. He's a positive, upbeat guy. He is, Mr. PR for UCLA. Those things are true. Martin has done a great job with the PR front. He's on Twitter all the time. He's the AD who was showing up at the women's water polo match, taking some video on his phone and posting it, right? And he's the guy who's handing out the conference championship hats at women's tennis or whatever the case may be. What we have not yet seen from Martin Jarmond is the administrative side of being an AD. This is that first crossroads. Where do you go with Chip Kelly? Where do you wind up? People want it because he's so upbeat, because he is so into posting daily affirmations while he's out running. They want to project that he's got to be happy with this. I would remind people that Martin Jarmond, after 3 years as the athletic director at Boston College fired Steve Adazio, who was 20-18 and had been to 3 straight bowl games because it wasn't good enough. Jarman had higher expectations. Well, if you had higher expectations at Boston College, certainly you have higher expectations at UCLA, and certainly Chip Kelly is nowhere near that. Nonetheless, our understanding is there has been an offer. What the delay is, we can project. Maybe there are issues about his staffing. Maybe there are issues about Jerry Azzanero, the defensive coordinator, who for 4 consecutive years has put up what is one of the statistically worst defenses in the country every year. Maybe there are changes that are wanted there. But if you're an athletic director, you really are not in a position to impose too many staffing decisions on your head coach. If you're going to determine who his staff is, then you really shouldn't be keeping him as head coach. You know, he's got to be free to pick his own staff and live or die with that. What we do know is that Chip Kelly is very, very, very loyal. More varies thrown in there. Very loyal to Azzanero. He won't make him talk to the media to justify his continuing to keep his job. He is the only offensive or defensive coordinator in the entire Pac-12 who has not met with the media all year. So that could be one of the tripping points. But we are only really 2 weeks away from a ship going to sea with no possible return.
Tony Syracuse, the last word on college football. We're going to leave the link for the full article down in the description section right below this video, because you need to get the full read on UCLA football. You will be a UCLA football expert, as I am now that I've read this article.
Thank you.
Just basing it on what's going on with Chip Kelly, but the roster for 2021 leading into 2022, and Dorian Thompson-Robinson, and again, UCLA football after 8-4 this year. So, Tony, this is what I'm coming up with, is that after the USC game, UCLA administration determines we want Chip Kelly to stay. They extend him an offer. So it seems as though he wants to stay at UCLA. He's somewhat okay with the offer, but there are some things dangling out there that he is not okay with. Therefore, he could not commit to the offer, nor did he leave UCLA at the time when a coach would need to leave a school to get a job for the 22 season. And maybe now some of those components, those little articles that are out there, are becoming a little bit more serious. Maybe Chip Kelly thought he would be able to talk them into some things, and maybe it's becoming a little bit more difficult to come to an agreement.
Yeah, I think you hit a lot of good points on that, and I think there's a lot to that. Both sides really are kind of backed into a corner a little bit right now, because we went through 6, 7, 8 weeks of coaching chaos around the country, right? There was a coaching merry-go-round that hit high speed at some point, with coaches flinging off the horses into different jobs. UCLA had some opportunities then. We don't get a sense that they really had any serious talks with anybody, other than maybe reaching out to an agent here or there, that they were not looking to pull the plug on Kelly right there and bring in someone else, but maybe reaching out at least to gauge who some potential possibilities were. Yeah, I know that's redundant, potential possibilities, but to see who was out there just in case. Now, Kelly did talk to Oregon when that job was open. But here's the thing. Kelly was never offered the job. Dan Lanning is the only one who was offered the job, and he took it. So, and Kelly acknowledges that he talked to Oregon during that time. Kelly's running out of options, right? I mean, not a lot of coaching jobs out there right now. Maybe if Todd Graham gets blown out by this investigation at Hawaii, maybe Chip Kelly goes there. But other than that, there's not really anything else out there anymore. So his options are minimal. As far as UCLA, not a lot of coaches out there that you can still grab at this point in time who didn't already re-up with another school.
And it would seem as though the 3-year length of the contract is about the shortest term that you would ever find extended to a head coach because of recruiting purposes.
Yeah, I think that's true, and I look at it as from what our sourcing says, it really is the bare minimum, and maybe that's the problem. Maybe Chip doesn't want to take the bare minimum, but what are his options? If Hawaii doesn't open up, Chip Kelly is sitting home waiting for the phone to ring, waiting for some other job come fall. There's really not a lot else there for him right now. And especially with what he has done to his record and reputation over the last 4 years, it isn't good.